All right, so today we're going to have a legal briefs for comics. As you might know, I'm a lawyer and also a comedian, but I thought it would be good to have just like a straight comedian who would get ready to be able to discuss this with other comedians. So I have a comedian friend of mine, Andrew Hobbs, who is on with me.
Hello. Hello, Wesley. It's nice to be here. Pleasure. Thank you for having me. I'm a straight comedian, but I'm super gay. So my wife hates that joke.
So you are so you are in so you're in New York City, you're in Manhattan, where all the snobby rich people live, right?
Yeah, where all the snobby rich people do heroin right outside my house. I'm in the snobby part where people openly do heroin. It's the 1%, am I right?
And wait, are you serious? Have you seen people doing heroin?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Uh-huh. And the thing that bothers me is not that they're doing heroin. That does bother me. But we had a snowstorm where we got like 2 feet of snow. And this guy just takes his shirt off in the middle of the snowstorm to do hair. And I'm like, you're just making yourself so uncomfortable. I feel like there's got to be a den or I don't know where else you do heroin, but a more comfortable place. I don't want to make light of people's addictions, but just, I've got addictions too, but they usually take place on my couch in the comfort of my home. Swathed in a blanket of my own shame, those kind of addictions.
That's right. Now you're from Idaho, is that right?
Yeah, I grew up in Idaho. I found out today Idaho has more gun owners per percentage than any other state. It's like a tie with Arkansas.
Nice. So, well, and how are you? Did like alarms go off in Manhattan when someone from Idaho tried to move in, or were they fine with? They didn't have any questionnaires where they said, "Wait."
No, I will say this. I have limited experience with New York, but what I've noticed since living here is that they're not like more open-minded about stuff. They just don't care about you. So like they don't care where you're from, what you think, because they're not going to talk to you. It's not like some places I live where you got to be in kind of like that echo chamber where everybody thinks the same thing. They would prefer to have no echo at all and to not talk to anybody. And so far people can get along very well.
So you don't, your discussions about impeachment, probably, I guess you don't have many of those on the subway or on the sidewalks or wherever you are in Manhattan.
I tried, continuing with the drug trend. I made eye contact with a man as he chugged a beer and then poked a hole in the beer and then began to smoke some sort of material out of it. I was like, he may not have an opinion on impeachment that I need to know right now. He's very QAnon shaman reminiscent. He kind of. Yeah. I felt like maybe they drank from the same gene pool.
Now, okay, so would the QAnon shaman stand out walking along the sidewalk in New York City, or would it just be like, oh yeah, he's another, that's pretty normal?
It's a little bit of both, he would stand out, but people would be unfazed by it. Okay. People are busy, they're walking. If he gets in your way and stops the flow of foot traffic, then people start to get upset.
Yeah.
Like apparently I've learned you're not supposed to have any sort of pleasure in New York City by like enjoying the architecture by looking up, because looking up, you're going to stop and you're going to stop people from walking. And that's a very touristy thing to do.
Well, so has your language, has the profanity level gone up since you've moved to Manhattan, or has it gone down? Like, do people in Idaho swear more than Manhattan, or is it about the same? Or,
well, I moved here during a pandemic, I've been here for 6 months, and I've spoken to 0 people. So,
okay.
I stare at them out my window as they go by, and I'm like, "I need friends." But Idaho cursing is like, I mean, it's the most redneck of cursing. You know, it's like punctuation, like, "Oh man, did you see that shit?" You know, it's like they start buffering halfway during the curse word, like, "Oh man, shit." You can edit that out.
I don't know if you put a T on, so I'll have to listen to it in editing to see if we need to put a little beep or not. Yeah. Okay, so if you had to, let's say that you go to open mic night somewhere in New York, even though I think they're all closed, or all the clubs closed. So let's say that you go to someone's, I don't know, backyard open mic night.
Yeah, they do rooftop shows around here, which is kind of.
So let's say that you're standing around with some comic buddies, and they say, explain impeachment. Explain what's going on with impeachment. I'm here to kind of help tutor you along so that you can explain this to them if they ask you questions. So where would you start if one of them said, "Hey, tell me what's going on with the impeachment process right now"?
Well, first of all, if anyone asks me about impeachment, they're asking the same reason I would ask them, because they know absolutely nothing and they're trying not to look like an idiot. But you hear about this in impeachment? Yeah. And the only thing we can say is, well, it doesn't mean they're kicked out of office. It just means they're impeached. And then everyone goes, right. So that's my extensive knowledge. I know Andrew Johnson was impeached, and I know President Clinton was impeached, and I know President Trump has been impeached twice. And he's like, "Step aside, guys, I got this. I'm going to set the record."
So are you following the Senate trial that just started on this impeachment?
I mean, are you trying to make me look dumber than I am, Wes? Because guess what? No, I'm not. I'm not following it. The only way I get my news is from Yahoo. I get on Yahoo and I read the headlines, and sometimes it gives me news. And then I'm like, well, I guess, like today I learned about Trump's defense is saying that is trying to defend his freedom of speech and First Amendment. And then the other lawyer, I don't know who he represents. Who do the lawyers represent? Is this America versus Donald Trump?
So it's the House, the House. So the House of Representatives, they have a team of lawyers, their team, who are basically like the prosecution. And they're the guys or gals or them. I don't even know what's right.
Non-binary people.
Yes. Like, how do I say it to not offend everyone? I don't know. Like,
this is what I learned. Just
humanoid.
Pretend like you're talking about a cell phone.
Okay.
You call your cell, like, where did I put my cell phone? Where is it?
Okay.
Where did I put that? There
so
you go.
They're
very forgiving people.
So they are basically like the prosecution, and the lawyers who are representing Donald Trump are basically like the defense team. But the House managers are from the House of Representatives, and they're basically prosecuting this article of impeachment against Donald Trump, and then his defense team is trying to defend him against this in the Senate. And so if they vote, they're going to have to vote at the end of this, and they'll need a 2/3 vote to convict him. And then if they don't have at least a 2/3 vote, then he's not convicted. So
is this is the Senate is now voting? Because they already voted. That's how about
Yeah, so the articles of impeachment, that just needed a simple majority in the House of Representatives to get the article of impeachment. But then that goes over to the Senate for actually the trial. And then to convict him, you need a 2/3 vote. So now we're just in the Senate actually having the trial.
So when you say a simple majority, is that a legal phrase? That's
so just like
simple
50,
as in all we need is one more person than you. Very simple.
Yeah. So like 51%. Yeah, and 2/3 would be, is that like 67 senators? I guess it would be 66.
You're talking fractions now. I thought this was a legal Zoom meeting, not a math Zoom meeting.
I know. I hate it when math gets in there. It's just
2/3. The common denominator would be Senator Cruz, because he's a real bummer, that guy. Okay. Anyway, so my question was, so if it's the Senate is voting on it now, if they vote with a non-simple 2/3 and say, yes, you're a bad guy, you're impeached, or we uphold the impeachment.
We convict you. Yeah, it's basically, if you look at the impeachment as kind of like an indictment, then they're, having a trial for this indictment or these charges. And if they convict, then that means, yes, you are convicted of that indictment or impeachment article. And if that happens, if he still were in office, then of course he'd be removed, but he's not in office anymore, so he can't be removed. But according to the Constitution, you can impeach, you can remove, and then disqualify from running for future office. And so I think what the House managers are really going after is to try to disqualify him from running again. Yeah, and that's an issue that people are arguing about, is whether you can really, whether it's constitutional to have this trial. And the Senate had a vote on that just, I think, yesterday. And it was, I think, 44 senators said, we don't think it's constitutional. And then, what is that, 56 who said yes. So it's proceeding on as if it's constitutional. And now they're going to argue about whether he should be convicted of the article of impeachment. But so yeah, I think they're really going after to disqualify him from running again.
Okay, two questions. When does it go? Is the Supreme Court involved at all?
No, like this, the impeachment is really a political question. So historically, they've always just kind of hands off. They let the Senate, the Senate do whatever they want with impeachment. And so I don't think they'll be getting involved at all.
Okay. Second question is, can we do this to anybody? Like, if you're impeached, does that make you ineligible to run for president, even if you weren't really planning on it? Like, could we pick someone that, like, we all agree we don't really like, impeach them, convict them of the impeachment, and then be like, dodged a bullet there, Ralph Nader?
So I think they have to be, well, they're supposed to be a current officer of some kind in order to impeach them. But that's part of where the argument comes in with Donald Trump, because they impeached him when he was still the president, but then he left office, so he's no longer the president. And so, one side is arguing, well, we can keep going because we started it while he was still in office. But others are saying, like, no, you've got to finish. Once he's out of office, the whole thing is moot. You need to just drop it. But so to your question, I guess if there was somebody who was an officer of some kind, like Hillary Clinton, she was an officer, wasn't she, like Secretary of State?
Yeah, she's Secretary of State.
So she was a former officer.
I got like all, yeah, she was a, like, I'm not embarrassed saying it. I am not embarrassed of her. I'm not embarrassed. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I mean, she was a former officer that, I mean, I don't think they could impeach because she wasn't an officer anymore, but she used to be one. So if the rule really is, if they have ever been an officer, maybe you could just pick someone out. But I don't think you can, but some people might say, yes, well, you can because of that. But was there somebody who you were thinking, we really don't want them to run for president?
Mostly Jordan Macon, who is a local comic, but he's traction on Twitter. And I'd like to see that stopped before it's too late.
I don't know that like vendettas against other comedians would, but if a congressman, I mean, you could probably see if they would, put together an article of impeachment.
I've written a couple letters to congressmen or to senators, and I never hear back.
So tell me this. Okay, what's the the article of impeachment? What what's your understanding that how are they trying to get President Trump, or sorry, Donald Trump? Like, what are they going
Get
after
it?
him for? Like, what's the article of impeachment? Um, that they're really going after him for. Your understanding.
Wow.
Don't be embarrassed if you don't know. Let's just pretend you're at the comedy club and some comedian just says, "Hey, you look like you would know this. Tell me what
Well-informed
the."
citizen of the United States. I'd be like,
Yeah.
yes, open mic comic. I learned this a long time ago because I studied an American government class, and then I would, blow a bunch of hot air for a long time, and then I'd be like, I think it was he incited a riot, right? And then I'd look
See, that
around.
is
Is that what he did?
that is the article of impeachment. Yeah, it's a he committed a high crime and misdemeanor by inciting the riot that took place on January 6th.
Yeah. My question is, I feel like it's and this. Oh, I was getting at this. The whoever. What do you call the attacking lawyer?
The prosecution.
Yeah, I need to watch more Law and Order. I would have known that. Oh, such a stupid idiot. The prosecutor, the prospector. They're rooting for little legal gold nuggets. The prosecutor, his rebuttal to President Don Trump's freedom of speech defense was he used I forget, I don't know. See, they used a bunch of names I don't remember. He's dead now, Supreme Court guy that says you can't yell fire in a crowded theater.
Okay.
Right? That your freedom of speech to yell fire is not defended by the Constitution or upheld or whatever. And then he went on to make the analogy of not only was it like yelling fire in a very like throwing a match in a tinderbox, so to speak. These people were ready to go, and they were ready to go because their leader had been getting them ready to go. These people are like ready to go, and then he's like blah blah blah, and so it's like yelling fire in a theater. But then he went on to say it's even more than that. It's like if the fire marshal not only told you there was a fire in the theater, but told people to go down and start that fire, and then said nothing and withheld the actual fire department to put out the fire until 2 hours after the fire had started, or how much or time it was. That was the only clip I watched today, moments before this video chat started.
Man, I was gonna say that's impressive because
super informed.
I thought maybe like you've been watching the entire trial so far.
No. And this is like what it's like what I just hate across the board about humans and millennials to Gen Z, who I don't know who's in charge of this, like who started it. But have you noticed like everything it's not like a conversation anymore. Everything is a roast. So it's like someone has a statement that they came out with that it's always some like I saw it with Jerry Seinfeld one time. Like people asked Jerry if comedy was dead or New York was dead after this pandemic and whatever. He's a real rich white guy. And he said, no, of course it's not dead. Everything that people loved about New York, it's just on a hiatus and it'll come back. And then people that are not to his status and either feel that they should or feel that because he's at his status, he's taking away opportunities for them. They're like, I wish this guy just shut his trap and make room for the rest of us or whatever. But it's always the headline of that story is always so-and-so destroys simp Jerry Seinfeld. It's always this like this comeback culture of like, it's not or someone who doesn't really matter shares their opinion, and then someone else who doesn't really matter destroys that opinion. And I feel like that's how I even saw that the video of the guy doing the defense, because it was like a simple analogy completely befuddles and destroys moron defense. And I'm like, well,
Yeah.
geez, news is getting opinionated, you know?
Yeah, I mean,
A dumb guy like me, do I believe the government is telling me everything? 100% no. Do I think that some news networks are in it just for ratings and will twist the actual facts on both sides? 100% yes. But we also, we're poor. We're poor people and we don't actually care. We're just trying to live our lives.
Yeah, no, that's
give us money or don't give us money. But either way, we're going to be poor today and poor tomorrow. I don't care what your news says.
No.
How someone will destroy that. I'll be utterly embarrassed. I should just fall on my sword instead of speak to my wife again.
Yeah. Well, no, that's a good point. Like a lot of things now are boiled down to great sound bites and great headlines, but hardly anybody digs in enough to really understand. Like, oh no, this is actually a really complicated question. So you can't, you know, that yelling fire in a crowded theater thing. A lot of people have used that, and it's way overused. So that's not actually what the law is that defines the contours of freedom of speech. But it sounds great, and a lot of people use that because it's easy for people to understand. I actually pulled up. Did you watch my other video? You probably didn't. It's fine if you didn't.
8 minutes. I got 8 minutes in.
Oh my. Okay, that's so great. Was there something that turned you off about my video that made you shut it off, or was it?
Well, no, I had to get in the shower because I exercised today.
Oh, okay.
And in full truth, under oath, it's not really exercise. It's called Ring Fit on the Nintendo Switch, and pretty much I just wiggle my hips to a beat. Getting so fat. Oh my gosh, it's disgusting.
I think you look great. From what I can see, I think you look great.
Well,
let me
into this.
Let me actually pull up, because I want to actually tell you what the test really is. Just, and then you can tell me what you think. Okay, so that the case that really talks about. Is this too boring? No, it's not too boring, is it? Have I already bored people? Are they shutting this off right now?
They probably are, but that's because people are idiots. We're talking truth.
That's right. We're going to drop some truth bombs.
Minds.
So the test that really defines like the contours of freedom of political speech is this Brandenburg v. Ohio. The test, I'll try to, basically the test is a two-part test where you say, okay, their speech, was it directed to inciting or producing imminent lawless action, and was it also likely to incite or produce such action? So that's really kind of, you have to ask yourself those two questions about what Donald Trump was saying, I think, and then that will help you decide whether he really incited an insurrection or was he just giving a political speech that was probably not smart and probably dumb to say a lot of those things. But here's a question. Do you feel like, here's a question. Do you feel like Donald Trump in that speech when he said, like, you know, you got to fight like hell and, you know, you can't let him take you, you know, when he said that stuff, do you think he intended for them to rush the Capitol, break in and do all that stuff? Or do you think that was like not really intended, but just happened and he probably wasn't smart in what he was saying, but he didn't really? And I know you're just like, you don't have any special knowledge. I'm just asking, you know, comedian in New York from Idaho. Do you think like he intended people to rush the Capitol and break in, or was it more of a oh crap?
Well, I don't. So I have a lot of thoughts on Donald Trump but now, and maybe people have had these thoughts already. I just look at that guy, and I should say this: I grew up in Idaho. I grew up very conservative. I voted conservative, but I am a never Trumper.
Okay.
If that's who's that guy that ran and he got votes in Utah and Idaho and a couple other places? Bald fella was like a CIA his name, I always called him Egg McMuffin, but it's like
I think I know who you're talking about.
McFoley, something. Anyway, I know a lot of people voted for him because they didn't want to vote for Hillary, but they didn't want to vote for Trump. And that was the first time I voted Democrat, because I was like, I'm not voting for this guy. That's for sure. And I've always had that, like, I didn't watch his show, but I've always watched like the sound bites, or, John Mulaney always had a really great Trump joke. Gary Goldman had a great Trump joke. And I always thought it was just common knowledge that he was a celebrity over a financial genius. Like he has failed so many times, but he is like a movie star. I don't know if Tom Hanks is rich and successful, but I know I'll watch him in movies. I thought that's everyone's like agreement across the board was this guy's a doofus, that he's gone bankrupt so many times, and he's filed bankruptcy, and you can give yourself, everyone always makes up the same things. And it's like, he just re-gifted himself all of his money instead of paying taxes, because you can give a certain amount of money away as a gift, and then he declared bankruptcy. I don't know if that's true, but that's like what I always thought. So when he ran for president, I was like, well, like, who is buying this? But then not a single Republican was good at anything. Like, they all forgot. Like, I think of Jeb Bush. I think, is it Jed or Jeb with a B? It's with a B, right?
I think it's Jeb with a B. I think. Yeah.
So first of all, his graphic design team should all be fired, because his sign was Jeb with an exclamation point. There's Jeb, and it's just like, this is stupid. He gives some speech. He's given some speech, and he finishes, and it's like, I've seen this 1,000 times with like open micers or comedians that aren't reading the crowd. They land on their punchline, and that's where they usually get a big laugh, but they walked over it somehow, and the audience isn't following. So it's just this silence. And then they go, you can see him like try to recover, like, oh, yeah. And then like one person goes, ha. And they go, yeah, me and this guy, we're the only ones that got it. Or, but Jeb makes a speech, it's just dead silent. He goes, oh, will you please applaud? And then everyone's like, oh, yeah. And I'm like, no wonder no one could beat Trump. Like, Trump was incoherent, but everybody else was just this sad, depressed. I don't know. Anyway, that's a tangent. My point is, what was my point? What were we talking about?
I asked you just your opinion on whether you thought, do you think he really intended for people to rush the Capitol and break in and do all that? Or do you think that was more of a, oh crap, I didn't mean for that to happen, but it just did? Like, just your own personal comedian, New York City.
Well, New York City is not going to play into this at all, but I like the hook. But like, so I never saw him as this like genius, right? But I am starting to come around. It's like, he can't just be dumb. Like, he's got to have some sort of strategy. Like he knows what buttons to push, and he knew how to get his base, as they always call it, his base enthused and excited. And the problem with that is you don't always get to pick your audience, like, I seem to have a big following of moms, like, to my comedy. I get a lot of moms, and every time I think like, I want to start getting like jokes that maybe get more dudes, but then I meet the people that have big dude followings, and I'm just like, ugh, they're the worst. And I'm like, oh, maybe I'll keep these moms and I can go on like a daytime TV show instead of some really crappy, I don't know, right-wing night show or whatever it is. But so I think he kept playing this thing, and it just kept attracting. It feels like the people that showed up were the ones that would be mad enough and have listened. So like, from my perspective, I don't think he thought, well, I'm going to say this and they'll actually smash down things and go try to hurt people. But I do think he thought that there would be a protest that would get out of hand in some cases. I think I don't know if it was like when he says fight, fight, fight. Like, I don't know. I don't know if he knew it would get that way, but I also don't think he thought it would just go over as hyperbole. Like, maybe it's more like if you have a bunch of cavemen and you tell cavemen that they've got to fight to survive, they're going to actually fight. But if you get a bunch of intellectuals and say, you got to fight, they're going to like take it to the courts, you know? I don't know. But that's when I read it and rewatch like the speech and just given, I guess maybe it's all hindsight that makes me think this way, but it does seem like, yeesh.
Yeah, I mean, certainly, I think as I looked at some of the clips from the speech and then knew the size of the crowd, I mean, I would have been concerned with like, oh crap, I don't want to say anything I don't want to say anything too dumb because there's a lot of people and they might get a little bit out of hand. So I think definitely, in my view, he said some things that probably weren't smart and he probably shouldn't have said them. But this particular test is, I don't know. I don't know if they're going to go through that in the Senate or if, I mean, they should, but I think they should. But maybe it'll just come down to, okay, how many people really don't like him? And then they're going to vote to convict. Like, that's my opinion is when I look at this, I think they could take the vote right now. And that same vote is going to be the result in like after 3 weeks of this trial or whatever. I don't think that anybody is going to change their mind on how they're going to vote. Which I think is, I mean, you I don't know. I mean, it's politics, but there's supposed to be a trial and there's supposed to be jurors. So they should be listening to the arguments and then deciding. But I feel like, I think there was, oh man, I thought I read somewhere that there were 40. Oh, okay, I'm going to say this wrong. But there were a whole bunch of senators who said they were going to vote to convict right now. And they haven't heard anything. So, and either they're all brilliant attorneys and they already know the facts as applied to the law, or it doesn't matter because they're just gonna vote the way they feel, and it doesn't matter what's going to be said.
Well, I go back and forth on like, I mean, this is me. I'm never going to run for office for anything. Like, I don't have a skill set that would make me good at this, other than maybe I'm personable and I know how to talk to groups, you know. I guess what I mean.
You know how to talk to moms.
That's true. I can get the mom vote. I'll tell you, you get the mom vote, you get the dad vote, because they can withhold so many perks.
Does your wife like that you have a following of moms?
I don't think she cares because, first of all, it's not a big following of moms. It's like my mom and really what it is. No, she doesn't really care much. I think if I had a big no, I don't know. It was weird because you can see as I'm 35, which also I'm eligible to run for president. So speaking of office, maybe I'll give it a go. But I don't think people are eligible anymore. Like I don't at the same time, I don't think they should put we need good ideas. And just because you're not a lawyer or a former CEO, like there should be room for people from different backgrounds to have with ideas to get those positions. But at the same time, I'm like, oh man, maybe everybody should have to get a degree. Like if you're going to run for office, you have to be this age, you have to have a bachelor's degree and maybe even a master's degree. And it has to be in a certain category of thing, or you have to have a certain, like any job interview. And I guess that's, you're pitching that idea to the people. And if they vote for you with or without that experience, then, well, we're putting so much control in regular people's hands, which is good and really bad. I guess that's why it's an experiment. So do you think about that? You and me, we have two different backgrounds. We are both. Our vote counts exactly the same.
I think that's great. I think the best. What I wish we had more back in DC were people who would listen to both sides and then try to come up with what they thought the best approach would be. Like, there's just it's so overly political right now that I feel like we have so few people actually talking. It's mostly just sending these salvos back and forth of these soundbite headlines. I'm like, will you guys actually sit in a room and just discuss this and like actually listen and give a rat's behind to try to understand what but I feel like it's just so partisan politics right now that it's kind of not great. So tell me, okay, what is your opinion on, do you think Donald Trump, let's say that he's not convicted, so he's not, they don't try to disqualify him from running again. Do you think he's going to run again in 4 years?
Yeah.
So thank you, Andrew House, for being on the show. I hope we've talked about some things that might help you explain impeachment to your buddies at the comedy club.
Mm-hmm. I think we have. From what I can understand, impeachment is a negative opinion that can or cannot be proven by fact or opinion about people's facts about their opinions.
Nailed it. All right. And thank you, everybody, for watching. And we'll see you next time.
Tune in for more Wesley.